Hi, this is Ken Ripple of Chariot Solutions, and I'm here to talk to you today about bundling your application in Angular, specifically bundling it for production as opposed to development, and also analyzing the size of your targets as well, so you have an idea of what size you start with and how you can improve that. All right, so first things first, we have this little application. It's called Drum Legend. It's available on GitHub. It's like a little sample app that I wrote for a couple of conferences recently, and so it's just a real simple drum machine game, and the goal is to play patterns by hitting a MIDI drum pad, or in the case of people without them, you can use the right and left keys, or R and L. I'm a lefty, so the R key is on the left side of the keypad, so that actually works for me. I can kind of play inverted. And what it does is it's kind of a Guitar Hero kind of thing. At the end, it just shows your score. And this thing uses Angular 4. It uses the Angular RxJS libraries and observables to deal with the audio chain, ultimately outputting the audio with Tone.js. And in addition, it uses something called NGRX Store and NGRX Effects to do basically a Redux pattern to store the state of the game. So it's an interesting little application. I really enjoyed working on it, and I was able to kick observables a little bit and see how they work in a decently performing way. So that's our little target app. The application is a couple modules, and they're all kind of bundled together in this typical way in the Angular CLI. We've got the vendor bundle, which is basically all the libraries like Angular and such. We've got the Angular app itself in main bundle here, which is the code. And we've got a polyfills bundle for all the polyfills we have for non-HTML5 browsers and non-ES6 browsers to bring up the stuff. And everything else is kind of like inlining of startup scripts and things like that. So as you see, as we're running this thing, 3.77 megs is what we are downloading to the browser with this vendor bundle JS file that we're delivering. So one way you can build and deliver to a website is to do ng build, and what it will do is it'll create a dist directory, and we're using the Angular CLI for this. We're using the dist directory, and when it's finished, it'll output all these JS files, some map files, which are your source maps, into the dist directory. And if we do a ls -lh, get the human readable size for everything, now we can see we've got, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place here. Look in dist. We can see we now have the 3.4 megabyte vendor bundle JS file. Our source maps are inline source maps, which means they contain the source code as well as the mapping. That way, if you compress or whatever, you have the original source. You can flip that if you want to, but that's what I'm doing right now, is generating those. And if what we want to do is we want to analyze the code in our source maps and see how everything is broken down, we just close everything out here. We can use something called Source Map Explorer. Now, before I do this, that's an old version of the demo I was doing earlier, but if I do npm install -g Source Map Explorer, then I have this as a tool that I can use anywhere that I'm working. All I need to do is go to a script file that has source maps defined for it, and that's what I get in my dist directory by default. So I can type Source Map Explorer, and I want to analyze first the application itself because I think that's interesting. Main bundle. It's going to come up here. It's going to bring this up for me. I'll bring the browser window over, and now we can see that the app itself is relatively small, 56K. Our source isn't that much code. The state machine is our NGRX and store, which is like a Redux store. So the part of the app that deals with that is about 21K. The synthesizer code, the stuff that integrates with the synthesizer and with MIDI, is 17K for the actual integration with the audio tone driver, and to adapt the data back and forth from various MIDI devices is about 8K. And then we have a few other things as well, like the main component, its container, and any of our models and data. Okay, so that's your traditional kind of basic application. Now, what we should look at next is why that vendor bundle is so big. Again, the vendor bundle is actually 3.4 meg. So let's do that. Source map explorer, vendor.bundle.js. And now what we're going to see is the 3.39 megs. Let's bring that up. A little bit big there. All right. Again, this is a live clickable view. And you can see Angular is 1.97 meg. That is a lot for Angular. But, you know, that is what it is. The base package uncompressed and unshaken and pared down is 3.39 meg. RxJS is about 650K. That's pretty chunky too. We've got Tone.js at 712K. NGRX, which is relatively light, is 56K, and the dev tools for it and things like that are a little smaller. But overall, we're dealing with 3.39 meg. All right. So what we want to do is we want to try to find a way to compress this thing. Couple things. First of all, if you go to the Angular guides on the Angular.js website, let's go to the website briefly. And we go to docs. We go to guide. Actually, it may be in the, in fact, it is in the advanced or cookbook areas. Let me find it here. It should be deployment. Yes. So there's a deployment section. And in the deployment section, talks about all the stuff that I'm showing you here. So ahead of time compilation and then Webpack. The good news is Angular CLI does all these for you as best practices. So that's the good news. The bad news is it can be a little bit confusing to figure out how to make this all work. So it is definitely worth reading this, and I'll also give you a few other notes in the video and the blog post around the video that will explain some of these things, some of the things you have to pay attention to once you start dealing with ahead of time compilation. But the way Angular CLI works is, we'll just go up here, is that if you do ng build -production or .prod, it will use ahead of time compilation. The default mode is called just in time, and just in time is the 3.4 megs that we saw earlier. And now ahead of time compilation, as long as your code is properly put together, is going to be significant savings in the size. And we're going to see here as this outputs, we're going to get down significantly. Now you're seeing in here vendor 2.48 meg, but if I look dist, we actually got the vendor all the way down to 731K. And so actually due to tree shaking and cleaning up, we really cut this way down. The other thing you'll notice here is that we've got hashes in front of all the file name prefixes, and that's because it's trying to cache bust for you. So it does all these things automatically. And if we do like a ng help build, you're going to see in here that there's lots of other options we can take advantage of here. Okay. But, you know, if I just did if I go into the dist directory and I do a head on vendor, it's already compressed, which is great. And it's all concatenated, and it's only 731K for that whole library. But maybe we should try to analyze that. So we'll go back and do the source map explorer, and now you're going to notice that it's going to complain to you and say it can't find a source map. Well, if you were quick enough to view the ng help build and read quickly enough, you would have seen that there is a way of generating source maps. It's -- source maps. So we'll just add that to our build and see what it does. And in turn, what it will do is it will build the source maps which have the full source in them if you debug and are looking for problems in your minified code, which is really nice, actually. So you can set breakpoints in the code even though you're in AOT mode, and you should be able to get to the actual code that was running at that time in uncompressed format. And we can analyze it then too. Let's see what happens. All right, so now if we do an ls minus lh of dist, yep, source maps are back, huge, because now I have to basically unwind all the source. And so let's see what happens when we do a, and I don't know. Yeah, it looks like the hash is the same because the source code didn't change appreciably. So it kept the same cache busting hash since the source code is identical. And notice this, we're now to 732K. That was the size of Tone.js before, and Tone.js itself was 700K. Angular was way up at 3 point something or other, 3.4. So this is a huge savings in size. So that's a really helpful thing to do. And let's see if we can serve this thing live server. That's a node package that I install when I do software development, and it automatically comes up. It's nice and quick. Playing my game, everything's fantastic. And just for fun, let's go to some debugging. So we'll go to Webpack. Source, look at that. Source app, drum legend, synthesizer, MIDI message, and there it is. And let's actually put a breakpoint on something here. We'll go into the state machine. Go to the Green Play Reducer and put a breakpoint on process next pattern, which is the method that gets triggered when we switch levels in about 4 seconds. And there you have it. So now I'm debugging with uncompressed source maps, but I'm running with ahead of time compilation in a much smaller package than I would have otherwise. All right, hope you found this useful. The other thing that you can also do, and this is kind of cool, is get at your development tools. And it turns out that, I haven't removed the Webpack time travel debugging. So, and just so you know, this is actually Redux time travel debugging. This is the Redux dev tools. If you've done anything with Redux and you're going into Angular and learning about NGRX store, it is compatible with the Redux dev tools, which is fantastic. I didn't remove them from the library. They came along with me, and I have my source maps as well. All right, hope you found this useful. And for any information further, go ahead and tweet me at RimpleOnTech, and talk to you soon. Happy coding.